United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we'll call the July 27th City Council meeting to order.
What do you do about that?
First item on the agenda is approval of minutes.
Second. I almost seconded it without a mic.
Better turn the mics on.
Oh, yeah, I guess we need to turn mics on. Thank you. All right, motion was made by Councilman James, seconded by Councilman Hess. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is approved. And next is approval of bills through July 22nd.
I move that we approve the bills through July 22nd in the amount of $331,506.80.
Second.
Motion was made by Councilman Cummings to approve the bills through July 22nd in the amount of $331,506.80, seconded by Councilman Hess. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is approved. Let's move on. All right, approval of agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
All right.
Second.
Motion was made by Councilman Hess to approve the agenda, seconded by Councilman Cummings. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion passed. At this time, we are going to move into public comment. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to address the council, please come up to the mic and state your name and address, and we will try to keep the comments down to 3 minutes, please.
Good evening. Janie Morley, 636 Taylor Street. I have actually 3 items for you tonight. I missed the last meeting, but I could see there was a workshop and a slight discussion on recreational cannabis lounges. I think you all need to slow down and consider why other municipalities are not jumping on board, and be very careful in the steps you take. I don't think you should go into this quickly. My second comment, I spent quite a bit of time reviewing videos from your June 22nd workshop regarding the recreational cannabis additional tax. What I saw there, at least 3 of you hinted or mentioned you didn't feel that you could trust the county to do the right thing should you give them the funding. I don't think you intended it to sound the way it did, but what you were doing was inferring that the county was not trustworthy. It saddened me to review those videotapes because you all have spent years building bridges to work together for the benefit of all citizens. Please don't burn those bridges down right now. I think you owe the county an apology on the record, since the comments were made on the record. And lastly, I see on social media there's some frustration with citizens not getting involved at meetings, particularly workshops. Steve, if you were quoted correctly, I don't know if you were. When I look, those workshops aren't on the city calendar. So unless you know to look on the agenda for the day of the city council and where to look on that agenda, you're not aware there's a workshop that's going to go on. So my suggestion would be maybe put them on the city calendar, maybe throw them out on social media. Take away the excuse of people not wanting to be involved. But I could see how they can easily be overlooked. And I know myself, I attended the one meeting you talked about. I never saw any opportunity for citizens to ask questions, so I quietly waited till the end of the meeting, asked my questions, and then followed up later. But I'd love to see that improve so more people get involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Do we have any, Liz, do we have anybody virtually? No, we do not. All right. All right, this time we will move out of public comment and into presentations, where we have Municipal Judge Jay Kramer will administer an oath of office to Brian Soper as our new police sergeant for the city of Craig.
You raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Colorado,
the Constitution of the State of Colorado,
and the Craig City Charter
and the Craig City Charter
and municipal ordinances,
and municipal ordinances,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well
and that I will well
and faithfully perform
and faithfully perform
my duties
my duties
as a Craig Police Sergeant.
as a Craig Police Sergeant.
Congratulations, Sergeant.
Thank you. Stab it. Read profusely.
Again, congratulations.
All right, thank you, Ron.
All right, this time we're going to move into the consent agenda. We have two items on the consent agenda, approval of renewal liquor license for Dark Horse Liquors and approval of renewal for beer and wine liquor license for 518 Wine Bar.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda items A and B.
Second.
All right, had a motion by Councilman Nichols to approve the consent agenda as presented, seconded by Councilman James. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. This time, we are not going to move into public hearing because we have nothing on the agenda for that. And we will move into other business. And we will have the first reading of ordinance number 1124-2020, an ordinance amending section 5.70 of the Craig Municipal Code to include requirements for renewal of retail marijuana license and fees.
There were no changes from last time, so it's the exact same as introduction.
All right. What would council's pleasure be?
I'll move to approve ordinance 1124, 2021, first reading.
Second.
I had a motion on the table to approve ordinance number 1124 from Councilman Nichols, seconded by Councilwoman Camp. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. All right. Moving on to letter B, award of the bid to North Glen Erie Tank Rehabilitation Project to WBS Coatings in the amount of $428,000. Who do we have for this?
Mark Schellenberger.
Mark?
Good evening, council.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
How you doing? In your packet, I have a memo requesting that you recommend, or my recommendation for council to award the North Glen Erie Structural Improvements Project to WBS Coatings for $428,000. There's $475,000 budgeted in the 2021 capital project fund for this project that was approved back last year. There was 2 bids received. This is the lowest bid, WBS. If you have any questions, there's also a memo from the structural engineer, design engineer. She also put her recommendations to WBS Coatings. If you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them.
Do you have any questions?
Nope.
No?
What was the budget for this item?
$475,000.
Good enough for me.
I'll make a motion to approve the bid recommendation for the North Glen Erie tank improvements to WBS Coatings Incorporated of $428,000.
Second.
All right, had a motion from Councilman Nichols to approve the bid for the North Glen Erie Tank Rehabilitation Project to WBS Coatings in the amount of $428,000, seconded by Councilwoman Camp. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those any opposed? Sorry. No. Motion is approved.
Thank you, council.
All right, we'll move on to letter C, approval of a moratorium of understanding between the United States Department of Interior, Bureau of Land Management, Northwest Colorado Fire and Aviation Management Unit, and the Colorado Department of Public Safety Division of Fire Prevention and Control, and the Board of County Commissioners of Moffett County, Colorado, and the City of Craig, Colorado, for the use of the Craig / Moffett County Airport for single-engine air tanker, fixed-wing, and helicopter operations in support of wildland firefighting efforts. Ooh, that was a long sentence.
And you did it well.
Thanks.
I think that maybe that probably explained what it was about, right?
Right.
So when Ms. Tyree contacted me late last week, apparently the old MOU that they had been operating under had expired, and I think it expired last October, actually. And so they were really under the time crunch, I think, with the BLM to get this MOU in place so they could have basically an operating agreement. Obviously, there's several other pieces that are contemplated in there that will be, agreements by separate MOUs. But for purposes of using the airport right now, just given the urgency of the wildfire situation, they were pretty adamant that this needed to get passed.
Question.
Anybody have any question?
So, we have had several discussions on the airport being more self-sustaining. I didn't see anywhere where there's any type of fees associated, rent payment, space rent, or whatever you want to call it. So, and I understand that there is work in play to do a permanent seat base out there, which would be several $1 million of reinvestment from BLM to make the permanent base, but it's not a guarantee. It's subject to funding appropriation. So I do know that sitting on the Yampa Valley Airport Commission, that Steamboat Airport, as well as the Hayden Airport with state wildland or forestry, pays them space rental for apron space.
Agreed, and there wasn't anything in there, candidly, and this is not to be disrespectful to the county, but, I think this was caught, it appeared to me at the last minute by the county, and it's a county-run airport. And so essentially the BLM needed something just because of the situation right now. The way that I read the MOU, it's subject to ongoing negotiations, and it also allows for any party to basically get out upon 30 days notice. But Ms. Tyree, and then they actually held that special meeting that I went to the next day. They just need it signed because they don't have anything in place right now. But you're right. You're absolutely correct.
But there's something in the APO, isn't there, about if the rotor's here, we get it in the first operational period without the fee? There is some benefits for it being here that are monetary.
I think the long term, I'm not saying we would jeopardize the
Right.
deal. I would just say that needs to be part of the discussion, long term, that the airport needs to be self-sustaining or closer. It'll probably never be self-sustaining.
Right, and I suggested to Ms. Tyree that, we still have our outstanding IGA for the airport agreement. We've never signed that. That we probably should put this along with the old issues for the old IGA on the agenda for joint services.
And I'm not saying to jeopardize the working relationship with the BLM.
Right.
because they supplement the county and Craig Fire wildland resources, as well. But I think the discussion needs to be somewhere.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they have any, there's nothing out there right now, I don't think.
No.
No.
Oh, even the stuff in Hayden was redeployed today.
Yeah, all the seats yesterday came out of Rifle, so.
Yeah, so.
Any other questions? All right, what would council's pleasure be?
I would move that we approve the memorandum. You want me to read the whole?
No,
I'll second.
I was just kidding. All right. Have a motion on the table to approve the memorandum of understanding. I'm not going to read all that. Just between the United States and, I have to read it all, huh? Between the United States Department of Interior, Bureau of Land Management, Northwest Colorado Fire, and Aviation Management Unit, and the Colorado Department of Public Safety Division of Fire Prevention and Control, and the Board of the County Commissioners of Moffett County, Colorado, and the City of Craig, Colorado, to use the Craig Moffett County Airport for signal, engine, air, tanker, fixed wing, and helicopter operations in support of wildland fire fighting efforts, seconded by Councilwoman Camp. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
That was a mouthful.
All right, moving on to letter D, award of additional work for a perimeter sidewalk for the Woodbury Playground to Charchalis? Thank you. Charchalis Construction in the amount of $30,617.06.
Good evening, Council and Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. This is part of the Woodbury, thank you, Woodbury improvement projects happening right now. So we finalized the playground down there and came to find out just for accessibility issues, especially on the east side of the playground by the parking lot, and then on the west side as well. To alleviate that, the best case or the solution we found was to create a sidewalk around the perimeter of that for accessibility, and really and also we're getting a ton of migrating rocks going into it, clean it up, and that would be the solution we thought to that. Charchalis, we had 2 quotes on it. One from Manson at $59,216.50, and then Charchalis Construction at $30,617.06. They're right there on site. It just makes sense to have all the equipment to do it. And also it'd be nice to finalize the playground as a whole and open it up, remove the barricades, or the kids just keep tearing them down, and it'd be nice to complete this.
In demand, they can't wait to get.
Yeah, and I don't blame them. But that's the thought there. Also, there'd be cost savings with another project we have, or tentatively slated this year, that on the East Park project, at $92,400. But I think we'll just be able to do the site plan this year for that. So that's where we'll have some cost savings and put towards this project. Any questions?
I just have a comment. I'm glad you're doing this. My first trip with my granddaughter over there, so that gravel area between the curve and the soft surface.
Right.
I was going to tell you, because we've had several of those over the years, that gravel getting in there and getting ground down in that safety surface only deteriorates it.
Yeah, it just makes sense to do.
So I think this is probably required for the longevity of that safety surface. So.
And it'd be nice too we're going to install, the thought is to put benches out there, trash receptacles, and, really finalize the playground. So.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll make a motion to award the bid to Charchalis Construction in the amount of $30,617.06 to the Woodbury Playground Sidewalk perimeter.
Second.
Motion was made by Councilman Nichols to award
Perimeter sidewalk.
for the award of additional work for a perimeter sidewalk for Woodbury Playground to Charchalis Construction in the amount of $30,617.06. $617.06, seconded by Councilman James. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Letter E, resolution number 2021, a resolution enacting a moratorium on the prohibition of a continuous occupancy on recreational vehicles to remain in an RV park for no longer than 90 days to remedy the housing shortage in Moffett County.
Hello, council. So these have been done in the past. The last one Costa did expired, I think, in 2010. Typically, they'd done it for 3 years at that time. However, Heather said there's a limit on what we can, a moratorium there that can only be for 6 months. So we may look at that to see if we need to change that in our code a little. This essentially, I've gotten quite a few calls here lately from workers. They're getting ready to do a 1,200 acre solar field down by Colowile and some other things. And a lot of times temporary workers are looking for somewhere to park their camper essentially that's legal instead of in somebody's front driveway. And so previously when people would call and ask if they could set one in a mobile home park, the answer was no, Lamplighter and the one up on 7th Street and that sort of thing. But this allows them to do that for longer than just 90 days. And then that way when we do have workers, we have quite a few people right now selling homes also and needing a place temporarily until they move or something like that. So while there's not tons of mobile home lots available, there are several, and this would allow them to be kind of freed up and legit if they go ahead and set a RV type of trailer in those parks for now, since they have the dump stations for sewer and electric and all that ready to hook up there. So
Do you have any questions?
I do. Is there now? What did you mean about the 6 month limit?
So Heather could probably explain that a little better. Just based on, she just said that after she did some research that a moratorium can only be in place for a period of 6 months. But perhaps we maybe look at modifying our code now. In the previously it had been done for longer, so whether, but I don't know, she might.
Right.
Sorry,
So
I just had
basic-
flashbacks to a previous life I had. Yeah, but why would we do a moratorium? Why wouldn't we just get rid of it?
So I think this was kind of a quick fix to decide what we want to do as far as possible modification of the code. I don't know necessarily if you want to long-term get rid of that limitation. You may, but you may not. But this buys us some time to make that decision.
We essentially don't want the mobile home parks to turn into RV parks. There's different requirements a little bit for RV parks and that sort of thing. So doing it on long-term, RVs are really not meant to be lived in full-time anyway, you know what I mean? So I think that's why they do this. They allow it for a certain amount of time, but it prevents them from turning into an RV park without all the regulations and stuff that an RV park would have. So it allows the mobile home parks to still stay within their zoning use, but have a window of time where we can alleviate some housing needs for workers and stuff like that. So that's why I think they don't necessarily want to change that code, because that's like I said, an RV park would turn into kind of a whole different use, and the infrastructure needs to be slightly different and everything else. So I think we could run into some problems if then we'd have no out, you know what I mean? People could put them anywhere there because they don't require permits and stuff necessarily to set an RV. So if it's on a temporary basis, it's not that big a deal, but we wouldn't want people flocking here and, you know what I mean?
Right.
Just buying lots in a mobile home park and just having it as RV thing. So I think saying this is the best way to do it. Just if we can always extend this, Costa had done it several times. He'd extend it it'd be a couple years, and if there was still a need, you know what I mean. But at least it gave us an out to where we had a sunset. We had a deadline to where we could then stop letting that proceed at least.
Yeah.
Marlon, what's currently the minimum length allowed?
What's that?
What's the minimum length of a mobile home to
Of
be in
an RV type camp trailer?
what right
Oh,
now?
40 foot is for a minimum for a manufactured home, a HUD home. Yep. Has to be minimum.
They're actually classified different?
considerably different.
Rating them by the door, yeah.
Yeah, a manufactured home is a HUD home, which is built as a residential property. So that actually is run through the Department of Local Affairs, Housing Authority, and that gets a permit and inspected and set and the whole works. And then an RV is just licensed as an RV, so a building department has very little to do with it as far as it, but they're not made for long-term living necessarily, so.
Is there any other areas that people within the city can live in an RV?
Technically, nobody's supposed to live in an RV, but there's the KOA is basically about the only other type of area where it's an appropriate place to park an RV and live in it.
I think due to our housing shortage and availability of rentals, this is required at the time present, so.
Yeah. So.
Questions or no?
All right, any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2021.
Second.
Motion was made to approve resolution number 2021 by Councilman Nichols, seconded by Councilman James. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Motion carries.
Thank you, council.
All right, and letter F, introduction of ordinance number 1125, 2021, an ordinance amending section 5.12.000 of the Craig Municipal Code to include requirements for annual renewal of liquor licenses.
So it was the same issue that we had with the retail marijuana. There wasn't actually, while there was a fee schedule, there wasn't really any definition as to the annual time frame. And then I also included in there that the city clerk can go ahead and approve those renewals as long as there's no cause for denial shown. So that will also save you guys a little bit of time as well.
Any questions? All right. And with there being an introduction, we don't have to approve that, right? I don't think so. Good to go. All right.
This is like the best council meeting ever.
We're 28 minutes into it, and almost at the end.
Go on the mayor pro temp, you know.
We'll move into staff reports. Wastewater report for May 2021.
Good evening again. The water and wastewater report for June.
It says May.
June was a good month water production wise. We made almost 100 million gallons, which was probably about 20% more than June 2020. Wastewater, we jetted a little over 5 miles of sewer main and vapor rooted about almost 2. We've been working on a lot of projects. The regional solar panels arrived in this past month. So far, no actual construction has started, but we expect it soon as the easement issues and all that kind of stuff are finalized. Water main replacement project, we ran into a little snag there. The materials are really getting hard to come by and are not coming in as fast as originally projected. So we're kind of holding up that project a little bit, and Mike Anson's already requested that this might go into 2022 to finalize because we might run out of asphalt season and everything else. Sewer main rehab off of Stout, between Stout and Steel, off of 9th Street. That project's scheduled to commence next week. And pretty much any other questions you have, I'd be willing to answer.
Mark, this is Chris.
Yes.
I know you're not going to have this off the top of your head, but future reports, any new service? I know a lot of houses are selling, have been sold. You know, they're not going to be a new meter, but it'd be a new service registered. It'd just be interested to see what our growth really is and home sales, new people moving in. Is that available? Can you do that?
I'm sure we can get that from Katie, from finance. Usually all that stuff's done through there, but yeah, that, because they would start the new connections or the new services. So that wouldn't be a problem.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions from Mark? All right, thank you, Mark.
Thanks.
All right, we'll move to the monthly financial report for June. 2021.
This is also for
It's good news.
I just assumed. That's what they pay me for.
Okay, so we'll start with looking at the general fund expenditures. Overall, we're 6 months or 50% through the year. 36% of the 2021 budget has been spent. If you look at city council, the department city council, we're 53% expended year to date. Expenditures are up 21% compared to last year because of the increase in the contribution to the Chamber of Commerce from $10,000 in 2020 to $25,000 in 21. And because in 2020, the CML membership invoice was recorded in the clerk and personnel budget, I think mistakenly, where it should have been in city council. Legal department, 38% expended year to date. Expenditures are up 24% compared to last year because of the transition between the prior city attorney and replacement. Administration, 36% expended year to date. Expenditures are up 35% compared to last year, primarily because of the addition of the new economic development manager position and the costs associated with filling that position and furniture and things like that.
It's also a grant-funded position.
Yes.
We'll get reimbursement on that for the first 2 years.
General services, 53% expended year to date. Expenditures are up 167% compared to last year because of the purchase of the new server. And that equates to about $38,000. Finance department, 58% spent year to date, and 29% higher than this time last year. The biggest factor there is the retirement of the previous director of finance and the payout of vacation and sick time. In addition, we had a single audit this last year for $7,500. We had it in 2020 also, but we didn't incur that expense until later in the year. And then we also added some additional licenses for users in Cassell, our financial reporting software, for $4,000. Community development department, 43% spent year to date and 21% higher than this time last year. The primary factors there are personnel costs and benefits increase and $8,000 in community program demo costs for like land cleanup and things of that nature that we didn't have prior year. Building maintenance, 44% spent year to date, 53% higher than this time last year. The primary factor there is in professional services, which are $19,000 higher than last year. In those professional services, the changes there, you had $4,000 for sign repair at the entrance of town, $5,000 for the cooling system consulting, and $6,500 for the parking lot resurfacing here at City Hall. PD, a lot of different factors happening in PD. 48% expended year to date, 10% higher increase from prior year. Increases in personnel costs and benefits. Again, there was a lot of transition with people with payouts of sick time and vacation and things like that. $10,000 in small equipment for computers and Chromebooks for the officers, and the increase in gas is a contributor there. They replenished some lab testing kits for about $8,000. Large increase in legal costs, $34,000 there, and then $9,000 in training and education that we just didn't experience in 2020. And then a $16,000 contribution to the task force. This item, again, is a timing variance when compared to the prior year. It wasn't transferred until later in the year, last year. Parks and Recreation Pool, 34% expended year to date. 17% increase from prior year, just relating to an increase in the part-time wages that weren't incurred in 2020 due to limited operations with COVID. And then Recreation Department, 48% expended year to date, 125,000 increase from prior year. And this is really all directly relating to Whittle the Wood that was canceled last year. And a slight increase in personnel costs compared to prior year because of the partial year with the recreation supervisor position being filled in 2020. And then here's just the chart comparing the operating expenditures year over year. Expenditures for 2021 are more than 2020 by almost 800,000 for the first 6 months of the year because of the areas that I discussed just a minute ago. The peak expenditure in April is due to the transfer of funding from the general fund to the museum for the 2021 funding. So we'll see in July where we had that peak last year, this year should be level. So it should start to level out. General fund revenues, 50% of the year is complete, and 51.9% of the budgeted revenues have been received, 31% or a 1.737 increase from prior year. Property taxes are right on target with where we should be, 73% received year to date, 10% higher than prior year. They were all due no later than June 15th, so we pretty much should have most of the collections done at this point, just trickling in from here on out. County sales tax, it looks a little bit lower, but that's just mostly because of the lag time from when it's reported to and remitted to the state and when we actually collect it. It's a month behind. City sales tax, 53% received year to date. We're running about 16% higher from prior year and compared to budget. I think really it can be attributed to several things. Internet sales, tax collection, stimulus funding going to consumers, and the addition of recreational marijuana sales in Craig. I think all those things have had a pretty big contributing factor to that. Sales tax penalties and interest, large increase. I mean, we don't really budget a whole lot there, and a large increase over prior year. We weren't charging penalties and interest prior year. And then marijuana state sales tax, we're about half of what we budgeted year to date, and then a large increase over prior year just due to the introduction of recreational marijuana sales. Under licenses and permits, marijuana license fees. So these fees initially when we started with marijuana were recorded in a different category, and then we decided we should recognize it as a separate revenue account. So we did reclass that later in the year. So you'll start to see that equalized throughout the year as well. Building permits, 96% received year to date. 105% increase from prior year. I talked some with Marlon about this, and some of it can just be normal fluctuation in building permits. You know, you can have one big contract that can totally blow that all out of the water for construction and things like that. So not so much COVID closure related, but I mean, probably cost valuation increases has probably affected that some as well. County permits are looking roughly the same. Intergovernmental revenues and grants. We did receive the first half payment of the American Rescue Plan funds for the $1.133 million. So that's why our revenues look, there's that huge variance when compared to prior year. And then the variance that we see there in severance taxes. Last year we received an earlier payment in June, and we had 2 payments for severance distribution when usually we only get one that's received in September. So Charges for services, biggest change here is just in parks and recreation. Pool passes are 18,000 increase over prior year. Youth sports, almost 16,000 increase over prior year. And then special events increase is all related to Whittle the Wood. Fines and costs, 39% received year to date, down 14%, a little over $3,000 compared to prior year. And we have no code enforcement revenues received year to date. Under miscellaneous revenues, 92% received year to date, 45% down from prior year. And so this is where last year we had been putting the license fees for the retail marijuana. So this will also start to level later in the year when you see that reclass hit compared to 2020. Interest continues to be dismal. C-Safe month-to-date interest is at 0.09% and Color Trust is at 0.04%. So we're just not earning any interest on our investments, basically. Rents for the Yampa building, only 36% received year to date. The current trends show that the Yampa building is bringing in approximately $3,200 monthly in revenue compared to $5,000 that had been budgeted. And then contributions from other governments, 50% received year to date. And this is, as I mentioned last month, just a contribution from Moffett County for the school resource officer. And the private contributions are the grant funding that we received from Resources Legacy to contribute towards the river diversion project. And here's just a graph on the revenue trends compared month to month, year over year. At this point in the year, revenues for 2021 are up by 27% over 2020, and expenditures are up 28% over 2020. We still have some major projects happening, so it's expected that the expenditures are going to continue to be up compared to prior year. At the end of June, having 47% of the budgeted revenues received and 36% of the budgeted expenditures spent is expected and normal pattern for the city's financials on an annual basis. Fund balance for the general fund started the year with $9.8 million, 6.7 unreserved. Current fund balance is 11.2 and 6.9 unreserved. And then there's also the other supplemental attachment with all the graphs and details for the enterprise funds and sales tax and things like that for your viewing pleasure.
Actual to actual and.
Yep.
I don't ever hear that anymore,
Actual.
I can start throwing it in just for old time's sake.
Every once in a while.
Just once for old time.
Just once.
Katie, of that 1.133 million, that's half of that funding that we're going to receive, so we're getting a total of like 2.2.
Correct. Yep. So we'll get the other half next year. Yep.
Do we have the requirements for that yet, or? Okay.
Yeah, they keep coming out with more and more detailed requirements all the time. The funds, I think, need to be, the expenses need to be incurred by the end of 2024 for those funds, and actually expended by the end of 2026.
Well, I think we could do that.
So.
The Yampa building keeps coming up as underperforming on rent. I talked to Randy Looper, the chair for the Craig Chamber, and he says there was a payment made at the first of the year. Anyway, you need to get with them and just clarify where where the rent is and where some of the money. MCTA paid first of the year, a lump sum, so.
Yeah, I'll look into that.
Okay.
I mean, we have the 6 months worth of rent payments for sure in that account,
Right.
but I'll look for a MCTA
Okay.
payment. Any other questions?
I also think that I-70 getting shut down has been
good.
definitely increasing the amount of business since it gets shut down. It seems like 1 or 2 days a week. You can see the traffic backed up in Craig.
And I'm not sure, when did that start for the
So-
closures?
June,
Yeah.
sometime in June.
At the
It's
last,
actually happened twice, right?
well, no, it's closed most
It's
of the
happened
time.
like 15.
Well, no, I know for like the last couple of weeks, I thought it
Right,
was like.
and this weekend it's supposed to shut down again because
Right.
the rain's coming through.
Right.
They're expecting a closure.
Yeah.
So,
They're shutting it down anytime they're getting flash flood warning,
Right.
so they're not waiting, so.
and there will be a 5-mile line of traffic just show up instantly in Craig. It's kind of impressive to watch.
Yeah. There should be a
Unless you're trying to cross the
argument to be
street.
made that we need to make 13 a interstate.
Right.
I've heard that.
It's a, there's a lot of traffic volume on that small little road. when I-70
There's a
shuts
ton of it, yeah. The Steamboat becomes an absolute nightmare in a parking lot.
Yeah.
All right, no more questions for Katie?
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. All right, we'll move on to Parks and Rec. Ryan?
So, in front of you in your packet, you'll have a Whittle the Wood recap. So we took this year just going into it just unexpected, with the COVID and not knowing really what to expect, but regardless, we took the approach to build on sorry about that, to build on the event and see what we could do to improve it. So, as you know, we hired James Williams to facilitate the entertainment. It was the first time that we conducted entertainment in the evening, which was pretty neat to see with the light shows and everything. Worked with a new artist to kind of refresh the brand of it. And also, first time that we charged admission on a Friday night for entertainment as well. So typically it's just been on a Saturday, and this year we opened it up, later in the afternoon, because that's what the feedback we received is, hey, we just want to go out there, check out the carvings, the vendors, but we don't want to stay for entertainment. So we try to make the best of both worlds for the public to do that and visitors. So, and in this packet, you'll see that employee overtime is included in the budget as well. To alleviate some of that going in, staff took time off and trying to set up for the event earlier in the week, which helped as well. And this is the first year that I can remember that we had volunteers, some really good volunteers, I think around 10, so it was great. All right, going into the budget itself, looking at the expenses of it. Really kind of on the projected for the bullet point of the wood carvers, that was down, just being that we had fewer carvers this year. We put out, I think, around 17 or 18. We were supposed to be solid with 8, but then for various reasons, we only had 6 that came in. So, and then miscellaneous security was from projected up tremendously due to clearing the park and additional security for entertainment. Lunches, that was up because we had more staff or more volunteers this year as well. And then broke it down just on miscellaneous on operations, the radios, canopies, things like that we needed to replenish. So that was up a little bit as well. This is the first year as well that our app fee, we included that as well to just really give a good description of the overall cost of the event. Entertainment was right there at $85,000. We took an approach more on the radio and the digital side to really advertise for the event. As you say in the introduction, really did a targeted email blast to get the word out there as well. There's some stuff like the Gateway banner that was kind of unexpected, just didn't budget for that, but included it as well. And then you'll see on the employee overtime, that was from projected as well. So came in from projected 120,000 and what was actual at $128,196. Any questions on the expenses?
The security, we only have one security in town?
As far as I know of. What's that?
We just had one, we didn't bid that out or anything, right?
No, as far as I know, there's just one.
Just one?
Yeah, but I think in, next year there's avenue, that's something to look at, The police presence, PD was there, and I think there's just different ways to look at that, to do some potentially different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did the bands require a certain level?
They did.
Especially Everclear.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually made a lot of us actually get out of there when Everclear showed up.
Which wasn't the best band that night.
No, I didn't think so.
Yeah.
The Verve Pipe was amazing.
Yep. Seconded by.
Yeah, thanks. And then the only other question I have is, I know what it was like on my side to work with James.
Yep.
And how easy that was, but how do you feel like it went? Because as the first year, we actually hired somebody to handle all of that.
Yeah, you bet. I think it went extremely well. He was super responsive, and his communication was on point, and it just made it run very smoothly to where that portion of like the entertainment was taken care of, where we could focus on sponsorships. We could focus on areas, like I mentioned, to really look at the overall picture of Whittle the Wood and what areas we can improve on. So that helped tremendously, and he has those connections and ends to where it was pretty seamless, I thought.
And
Something you couldn't do, right?
What's that?
That's something you don't think your staff had the ability to do.
I certainly don't. I mean, I just don't have those connections where, in the entertainment industry, it seems like the bands are on a move, to put in a request or, to solicit for them. And he has those connections, where we don't.
I appreciate James that night taking me around, spending time walking around the pavilion and telling me what really needed to be done. We heard so many stories and everything about it, but he spent a little bit of time, so now we can go back to joint services and figure out what changes and some way to actually pay for it so it's usable next year.
You bet. Yeah.
Okay.
I think just the layout. That's another thing. There's so many new things, logistics to Whittle the Wood, and it was a challenge, but also rewarding to when it came. Time the event was on to make those changes if needed, but to see it all kind of accumulate together, and the public out and people enjoying themselves. It looked like just with the layout, it was kind of spread out, so to speak. But overall, I think it went well.
And the only other question I had was about marketing, and I don't have a good solution here, but a lot of people I talked to, even just in Steamboat, had no idea that we had Everclear here, which is I just find shocking, right? And it's kind of like when we try to put stuff out, like the newspaper quoted me correctly. I'll talk about that later, but we try to put so much information out, and it's always a shock to me that in an age where everybody has so much information at their fingertips, so many people don't know what's going on around us in the community. So,
yeah, I mean, we advertised pretty heavily on the radio station up there. We even had a staff member go up and take posters up there.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it goes with to say even on our recreation programs or other events, it's just, well, I missed that deadline or I didn't know about it. It's
right.
It seems no matter how you get it out there, it's just.
Well, that's the quandary right now for any marketing is what's the best medium?
What is
With
it?
digital age now, so people take so many different forms of information. How do you cover them all? You can't.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, moving on.
Questions for Ryan? Oh.
Well, I was going to go in just to revenue real quick, overview that. We kind of on our sponsorship levels, really they were increased, I guess, in the past for, a platinum sponsor was at $10,000 and et cetera, et cetera. So we try to bring that down, reachable, especially in the COVID era where businesses could, potentially hit that sponsorship, that mark if they so chose. So brought it down, included one more sponsorship level, and actually we did pretty significant in that in the Whittle guys. Number-wise there. Our silent auction and quick carve, that was down from projected. It's kind of steadily been going down over the years. Shirts and merchandise and beer and ice sales, from what we thought on the merchandise or on that end was increased. So that was pretty neat to see that. And then, you know, on the actual revenue, broke it out to see what actually on a monetary the city received in value versus what in-kind sponsorship. So just the overall depiction of what everything kind of fell out and get a real sense of what the revenue looked like for everything. So, and then we got a partial reimbursement for Friday night because Robert Randolph couldn't be there, so that was good. And then you'll see the admissions for the entertainment total around $40,000. So, with a total of $94,980 on that.
And you had projected those ticket sales at like 75, is that right?
Yeah, basically on Friday or like Friday night on $15 ticket at 1,000 people, and then so on. So, yeah, there's been good response, you know, good feedback from it. Got some also feedback on the fees from it as well. But overall, I think it was a good event. I think people came out and enjoyed. Mother Nature, you know, was also with us as well. But there's just, like I said, a lot of new stuff. We even setting up parking on Friday night, just having people park in the parking lot and walking. It was a disaster Friday for us, but we regrouped for Saturday, and it went super, very smoothly as well. And then various staff or departments came out, finance as well with the credit cards, Road and Bridge with helping us with the traffic and PD, of course, with the presence. It was great help. So
I was just thinking, like, we ended up moving that partly because we always are in competition with Country Jam, whatever,
right.
if that is still what they call that. But of course, we moved it from Father's Day weekend, and then they also moved
so did
that
Country
event from
Jam,
Father's Day
Yeah.
weekend. So I'm just curious, what are your thoughts? Because was that part of the reason we didn't have as many carvers? Is because we changed the weekend? Are you thinking about moving it back, keeping it the same?
yeah, you know, I definitely don't want to go into the notion of just continually back and forth, you know, to get a date. That was the one thing that to get it off on a busy weekend, you know, for Country Jam. We reached out before we even started this and spoke with the carvers to see their availability, their thoughts on it. They were great with the weekend after. And the bad thing is with Country Jam, you never hear back from those individuals to kind of coordinate some stuff. But overall, I think if you're going to go to Country Jam, you're going to go to Country Jam and so on. Yeah.
Any other questions for Ryan?
What kind of feedback on your admission prices? Too high?
Outrageous.
Outrageous?
Yeah.
$25 or a major?
That was one that really stuck with me.
Okay.
They said it was outrageous?
Okay.
But there was a lot of good too.
Right.
Yeah, there was a lot of good stuff.
I think general being out there, and we were the Parrot Heads and Chamber selling beer, I think people had a good time. It
Yeah.
was a great event.
Yeah.
I think it showcased Craig for the out-of-towners.
Yeah.
Several people said, I'm traveling through, never been here. This is such a beautiful park, beautiful place. So I think we had some pretty good PR from it.
Yeah.
Just visually, it looks awesome with that stage out there. If we can use it, like if we can make some adjustments to it and actually use it.
Yeah, it looks good.
It does. It looks great out there. It looked bigger than the stage that we all played on. So.
Yeah.
That beer garden, it sure seemed like the Parrotheads Chambers. It was concise and it flowed super well up there, you know. But yeah, they had it on point.
No lines.
Yeah, that's right. But it was fun.
One vendor that had a huge line, that potato thing.
Yeah.
That was selling stuff like crazy.
And that was neat to see also. Ryan was just you go check the vendors, check in with them, and hey, I got to go back to the store. I had to go back a couple times, and that's exactly what you want to hear, you know. So it was good.
Great Good job.
Thank you.
and your
Very
staff.
good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
All right, move to Road and Bridge.
Good evening. You guys should have the report I put together, kind of highlighting all the big items that we've been having going on the last month or two. But the big one that everyone's seen is downtown sidewalk project. Project's going really well right now. We're a few days ahead of schedule. It's going as good as any project you could hope for, you know, logistically and schedule wise, and I've had no complaints personally, so the contractors are doing a really good job keeping the site cleaned up. And I don't know if if you guys have been downtown to see the east side of the 400 block, but it's turning out really, really neat. So it's going to be pretty attractive and user friendly once it's all complete. So like I say, it's on track as far as schedule goes, so that's good. Banner poles, hasn't been forgotten about, Chris. We're working on it.
I saw that.
The design, I know you were. I got the designs pretty much done. We're just kind of finalizing the location details. I have to get 2 of the sites permitted, particularly the east and west sites. I got to get them permitted by CDOT. I kind of got a verbal that they will be, but I just got to get some documentation put together and sent out. I got pipe ordered for the poles already. Access Steel should have that in already. I haven't got to pick it up yet, so we'll be manufacturing the poles locally and getting those painted and installed, hopefully sooner than later. I'm trying in the next month or two to have ground broke, so it's just taking a little bit longer than what I would have guessed, but it's going forth. Sherwood Forest, if all goes as planned, we'll start working on that crosswalk next week. Start saw cutting and demoing curb and gutter. Road and Bridge is gonna demo the concrete in-house to help save a little bit of money, save a few grand on that project. Those signs are a little bit more expensive than I would have guessed, but we'll get those purchased here and get that project going. Taylor Street curb and gutter project, the concrete work's wrapped up. Tomorrow we're going to start milling. We'll start laying asphalt Thursday, Friday on Taylor Street, and hopefully by the end of Monday, Taylor Street and 6th Avenue West are both wrapped up. As far as the asphalt projects we've been doing internally, particularly with the new paver that we got, the guys have really got used to operating it, and it's still a learning curve, but we've put it to use. Actually, on Taylor Street, we're able to use it to do the 2-foot patch along the curb and gutter, and doing 1 block of curb and gutter patch would typically take you over a week, and we did it in 2 or 3 days. So I mean, the time savings there is tremendous, and it's neat being able to utilize it for more than what we actually even intended to originally.
That's awesome.
I saw a picture up that we got that trail completed up at the hospital loop from Ridgeview to the hospital. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it was about 600 plus feet. It turned out really nice. Using our paver and our crew, prepping and installing the asphalt. We also did, it's been a while now, but we did the alley that Steve came and checked it out. That was one of our first projects we did an overlay on the alley behind Come and Go, North Come and Go. It did need it, but it was also a practice location to learn the operations and so forth of the machine, and it actually turned out really, really nice. So that machine's money well spent, and the guys are grabbed the bull by the horn, and they've been learning it. So we'll continue using it. I don't have data to compare it to, but we laid 300 tons of asphalt, and that's quite a bit of asphalt in 1 month. So for our small crew. To give you an idea, when we're doing patching, you can usually do about 1 to 2 dump trucks a day. 100 tons is 6 dump truck loads, so that's, do the math, 300 tons, you're looking at 18 plus loads of asphalt. So we're a lot more efficient and able to get more done.
That's awesome.
Sweeper crews, replace some signs. They were kind of slow on sweeping the last month or so. When we're using the paving machine, they're trucking asphalt for us. But we got them back out and we're sweeping again. So you'll see us out and about doing that. The summer help, we have 6 summer help out in Road and Bridge, and they've been busy. These are the 2 big items they did, but 10 miles of crack filling, that's a big chore. And they've done a good job getting that done for us. And we got town mowed and cleaned up, so that's looking good. And the little exciting event that I'm sure you guys saw on social media, the trash we decided to just burn for fun out in Woodbury. Attached a picture of it, so we didn't think there was anywhere better to burn it, so we picked Woodbury.
Only thing you do is just dump it.
Yeah.
How did that?
But we don't know. Rod and a couple others, Shane, kind of tried to investigate what happened, where basically came from a dumpster somewhere. Something was hot in the dumpster, and it just, once it got in the truck, it ignited, and it was a big fire. And the truck driver and Shane and Rod reacted pretty quick, and Woodbury Park was the closest parking lot to unload a $300,000+ truck. Rather than burning it up, we thought we better dump the load, and the fire department came and helped extinguish it, and we laid it out to make sure it wasn't hot before we took it up to the dump. So it was kind of a mess for a minute, but it got cleaned up, and it wasn't an intentional fire. It was saving a $300,000+ truck.
There's a celebration of barbecue for the new.
Yeah, we were out there cooking s'mores for fun.
Those aren't fun fires for the fire department either.
No, everyone reacted. It went, considering a fire like that, it went good, and we actually learned from it. We've had hot spots in trucks before. The guys are trained to compress the load because it suffocates them. On a fire of that scale, that wasn't going to touch it. So we actually went through and had a safety meeting and discussed, if you have that happen again, where's good places to dump. And really, at the end of the day, as long as you're not near a house or whatever, I don't care what street you're on, we're going to dump it to save a multi-$100,000 trucks, and we'll get it cleaned up. Next to dumping it in the highway, we won't do that. But it's not typical, but it's still definitely something that can happen. So
I love it. I love learning experiences.
yeah. So that's what I got. Unless you guys have any questions.
I do, if anyone. So, couple questions. Just some comments from the public. The bump out on the Yampa Valley. There's one going in on the other side too, right?
Yeah, there will be one directly adjacent across the road. Same thing across from Alice Pleasant in the Budget Center.
Yeah.
There will be one. The way those got developed was, the intent was to have a crosswalk at those bump outs, an ADA ramp and designated crosswalk. The engineering firm kind of proposed an idea. We had to get it reviewed by CDOT. CDOT did not approve of the crosswalk because of the crosswalks at the intersections, 300 feet on either side. But they said if you want to leave the bump out, you can. It just can't have the designated crosswalk. The theory was people will still utilize it as a crosswalk. I mean, where they're located happens to be a parking lot on right at those bump outs where a majority of people tend to cross, with the thinking that once you can get some statistics in the future, we may be able to go back to CDOT and say, hey, this is a justifiable location for a crosswalk. So it's just kind of it's a stepping stone, and it's just a different feature, a little different curb appeal,
Trevor,
so.
just, those bump outs also serve another purpose. And actually, that was my recommendation, to have a crosswalk mid-block, but they also tend to slow traffic.
Right.
It's just a natural phenomenon. When the street is narrower, the traffic slows down through those business areas of town. So even though it's not a crosswalk yet, it may one day be, and it's at the right location to get from Alice Pleasant Park across, and it'll be at the right location to get from that parking lot across where Masterworks and those businesses are.
Yep.
And I
do see people crossing that all the time.
in a lot of communities, put these little bump out things, a lot of times they're more at the intersections to shorten up the crosswalks at the intersections, and really does create a bottleneck, especially for people with trailers and stuff turning corners. So this, at least, it's more of a line of sight type bottleneck. As far as actually restricting the road, it doesn't at all. Right. The lane is still over 12 foot wide from center line to it's actually about 14. I think it's even wider than that. I want to say it's 14, 15 feet from center line. A typical travel lane's 12 feet wide. So, I mean, it's not going to restrict wide loads or nothing, So to kind of piggyback off what Peter said, it should help slow people down, especially because there is a lot of jaywalkers, right? And, with all the parallel parking along the curb and gutters. So anything we can do, especially for out of town type traffic that we're just racing to get out of town, hopefully it will be just a visual warning to slow down. So,
I'm a jaywalker.
Well, it also makes
Doesn't
it look like
surprise me.
Does that create any special problems, snow removal, or, and then?
yeah, it's an obstacle. It's definitely
Two parking spots for each?
it's about 2 parking spots per side, and it is an obstacle for snow plowing. We discussed it quite a bit on whether to leave it or whether to take it out, and the consensus was to leave it. So that's what you're seeing.
And then the old trees, I know that we cut them off, right? And then there's a lot of concern that, are we pulling them completely out so that they don't come back at all?
I researched that, and I reached out to a landscape architect and was told that species of tree is not a concern for growing underneath the pavement and causing issues, but we decided regardless to go ahead and pull them out. So we are excavating the whole root ball and going back in with pit run and compacting and making sure we don't have any soft spots. So
Awesome.
I think it makes me feel better removing the whole thing. Surprising, a lot of those roots are pretty shallow and were definitely causing issues with the sidewalks, as we've witnessed. And what we're doing when we put the 30 new trees back is we actually have a 2-foot root barrier that will make those roots grow down instead of try to laterally grow. So hopefully the intent is to have a 20+ year project. Typically a project like this is a 20 to 30 year life cycle, and you go through it again. So
I think it looks awesome. Hopefully we're getting good feedback from the business.
yeah, I mean, the businesses have been great. Everybody's been really reasonable to work with. We try to communicate the best we can, let them know when we're going to be impacting them, and the communication's been good by the contractor and the stores. I mean, if anyone has any concerns, they can reach out to me or catch me or the contractor down there and let us know, but we haven't had anything thus far. So
It looks good. And
So I hate to add to your workload on the banner poles, but we need to come up with some requirements for the events that want to use them. When you want them, what's the size of the banner, what's the wind, strength, how soon do you need them, how you get them up there, and some of those concerns. So.
yeah, Peter and I actually discussed that. It's been a while back, and we haven't we haven't started writing anything up yet. We know it's something that's definitely need to be worked on. I did speak with Dan at Identity Graphics. He makes a lot of the banners for Steamboat, probably even the ones in Hayden. So he has some good ideas too. He may be worth including on that as far as what type of stuff and the types of materials. There's different types of materials which affects the cost. You know, like the ones you see in Hayden, the one I can picture those offhand. They have vertical slits in them for wind, but those are a cheaper type, and they're gonna get ratty. It's just the fact of the matter. They make a more expensive style if it's more like of a mesh. It's got wire reinforcement in it. It's more like a screen printed see-through mesh. It costs more, but they stand up longer. So it's just one of those things to discuss. If you got something that's going to be up for a week, you probably want to do the cheap one. If we got something that says "Welcome to Craig" and it's going to be up for a month or more, we probably want to invest in a little bit nicer banner or something. So definitely think something.
So thanks for your work on that. I appreciate it. I think the event organizers will appreciate it. How's your ice machine?
We are waiting on the cooler.
The bin?
But yeah, the bin. But we got it making ice. We got it fixed up, so.
I felt sorry for you guys standing on that black asphalt.
I'm telling you, it's been hot this summer.
Especially when it's temperatures we've been having. So.
Especially when you're standing by 350-degree asphalt. It's hot.
Okay, that's all.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions for Trevor? Thanks, man.
Yep, thanks.
All right, move to city manager report.
Okay. Heck, Ryan's already looking into banners, aren't you, Ryan? Yeah, so I think he's got some guidelines for next year. Anyway, the Brownsfield funding is likely going to be available in the federal fiscal year 2022, which starts October 1st. That's a $300,000 grant that we had been awarded. We have a request for qualifications going out this week to select an environmental and engineering consulting services company. So probably sometime September we'll have that company selected, and we should be ready to roll on the Brownsfield projects sometime fourth quarter this year. August 4th, 1:30 to 4:30, if you'd put that on your calendar, Melanie will be getting out an invitation to you that'll describe, we're going to have some senior managers for the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority here with the town of Meeker, town staff, mayor, and the chamber director from Meeker, and we'll do the same here. We'd like to have as many of you that could participate on August 4th, 1:30 to 4:30. And like I say, Melanie will get out an invitation. It's likely going to be right here in the council chambers that afternoon. Margie Joy asked if we could establish an opportunity to exchange ideas and thoughts on housing status and that sort of thing. So I think it'll be a good meeting. We'll talk about the economy, the transportation issues. We'll talk about housing, cataloging and prioritizing parcels that might be a benefit, leveraging city-owned land potentially, public-private partnerships to extend infrastructure, understanding the demographics that are creating this gap in financing for particular housing that they're looking at, rental versus ownership housing, low-income tax credits. Those are some of the topics for the meeting. We're obviously working on the budget right now. August 19th is the day of our first retreat. Likely have that in the morning. Katie's working closely with the department heads, and we'll be getting together here pretty soon to talk about capital projects and personnel compensation, that sort of thing, and operating budgets. So the first meeting, August 19th in the morning, is on your calendars, I believe, that you all have at this point. Cura Town Hall meeting for URA number 2 tomorrow night at 6 p.m. We'll likely be meeting with the unincorporated parcel owners from that part of the URA, or part of the urban plan area number 2. Weeds. We have a weed problem. We are trying to get on top of it. It drives me nuts to drive down some of the main thoroughfares at times. I've talked to Mike a few times, and we have some staffing shortages right now with CSO. We just hired a new CSO, and he's going to be good, but he may be short-term. We'll see. But I'm meeting tomorrow with the chief and with Heather and Captain to talk about how we can be more effective and more efficient here this year on some of the weed and refuse problems throughout the community. It's just literally been a staffing issue in that department right now. We had one CSO that left, for the shelter, the homeless shelter. The other CSO is at post training right now to become a police officer. So, and the new CSO is getting his feet on the ground here. Colorado Day is August 1st, and the city offices will be closed August 2nd. So that's this coming Monday.
Colorado Day.
What's that?
What's Colorado Day?
Colorado became a state.
It's
What?
It's the day that Colorado became a state.
it's a day that we honor the state.
Has that been a thing every year?
Yep. Yeah. We're the Centennial State.
That has been a thing every year. It's actually in actually in our code. So.
Cool.
I asked the same thing.
Days off? That's weird. I don't understand it.
You guys let me know that we don't work that day.
It's the beauty of being salary. It doesn't really matter.
Just wanted to let you know. I didn't know what Colorado Day was either until I got here. So,
It's the day Colorado.
I probably ask that every year.
yeah.
I imagine it's just a day.
The only reason I know that is when I list Colorado as a victim in my warrantless arrest affidavit, I use August 1st of 1876 as its date of birth.
Ryan, we knew you would have that info. Didn't surprise me.
So you folks approved a grant submission that we're just about ready to go out with to DOLA for the Renewable Energy Initiative. It's a supplemental grant for $900,000. We're hoping to also to see that partially funded by Just Transition. That goes out this week. I had a call from Wild Horse Warriors. Is anyone here familiar with that group? Okay. They've been around for about 3 years. Right now, they're hauling water out to the wild horse population out at the Sandwash Basin. Apparently, we have 800 to 900 horses out there at this point in time. I was just shocked when I heard that number. They are, in talking to Ryan today, the health of those horses are not looking so good right now. They were asking for funding from LMD this past week and looking to continue the truck driver and the hauling from Maybell out to Sandwash Basin, probably through October 1st, unless we get some moisture or something like that. But they were denied that, and they'd like to present here next council meeting on the 10th of August, and talk about the issues and their concerns with the horse and the tourism benefit that they say is pretty significant. I mean, they have car groups of 60 and 70 at a time sometimes that go on the tours out there that they take them out to see the horses and the landscape out in that area. So they think that we experience a pretty good economic impact as a result of the wild horse population. There is a gathering coming to reduce the size of that population pretty soon. I'm not exactly sure when that's going to be, but that's probably a pretty necessary thing to happen based on the size of that group of horses. I think that's, I guess one other item I might mention. I guess last night there was another meeting of the Family Homeless Shelter. You've probably seen the changes in the facilities that they've proposed. They've kind of bounced around, and now they're looking at the furniture store over here. And I want to continue to emphasize that our sole responsibility in this regard is to identify the zoning issues that they may face, whether it's a conditional use or whether it's an appropriate application for that land use. And the other thing that we tend to do is, especially for commercial facilities like that, is look at life safety issues and structural issues at times when we look at approving a facility for a particular purpose. So that's it. We're not involved in the planning of that project. We're not involved in the financing of it. And we're at arm's length. We have a mandatory obligation to do the things that I just cited in terms of citing a new facility in our community. So that's all I have.
Are they going to be asking us to be a fiscal agent? Is that what I was to understand for a grant application?
They are, but they have other alternatives.
Okay.
And they are short-funded in terms of being able to possibly get into that facility. And so they're looking at a potential DOLA grant, a DLG grant. But I said, I don't necessarily think that you're going to get support there, but I brought it up to all of you to consider because I was requested and asked about that. If their request to us would be solely to submit the grant from the city, because otherwise they don't qualify for that grant, that particular funding opportunity, without a governmental entity submitting the grant, city or county. But they do have two other funding options that they could look at in a year or two. So if you would provide me whatever input you want on that to give me kind of a consensus direction on whether we should have any participation in that.
Go with a hard pass.
Same. I'm not, I don't want to get in the way, but I don't want to fund any part of it either.
Right.
I think that that's just reasonable, honestly.
And I don't want any consideration for future funding down the road.
No, absolutely not.
If we participate, so I don't think the city will be down the road and take on another entity to help be a major funder for us. So I know that's not what they're saying, but grants are kind of fickle. They come and go. And this COVID money is not going to be around forever. Mm-hmm. So, Peter, I'm glad you cleared up the responsibility or the role of the city in this, because I think we have people in the audience that are going to ask the city not to support this. And so far, the city did not sign on their original grant request because it was different stipulations then than it is right now, but the county did. So really our role is, like Peter said, so there's not a lot that we can do. They have the funding. If they meet the zoning and the building code issues, then there's not a lot we can do.
Marlon may have some comments. I mean, he's doing most of the work on that side.
Yeah, I met with him obviously on about 3 buildings so far. I met with him today there at the furniture store, and Peter will be getting an email tomorrow. I've got an email I got to send out to Hannah and some of the others on what would be required. The zoning is appropriate. It meets the zoning requirements for there, but some of the building stuff may be more than they'll be able to tackle possibly, but I'm just giving them a lowdown of what'd have to be done when you start switching buildings over to a residential use from a different type of use. It gets a little trickier. If you're using an existing use like the old CAPS building where it's already formatted for that, even though it wouldn't meet the new codes, You're not changing the occupancy use. So every building has its own little challenges, so I don't mind at all looking at them at least so that I could head off any major red flags before they get started on them, but so far that's been our only involvement, is just letting them know what will work and what won't, so.
Marlon, what would be the requirements for that setup that they were speaking about? So if they're going to have pods that would house, say, 12 groups of families, what would be the requirements of say, bathrooms, for example?
So according to them, they'll have separate common bathroom pods also. The main issue is when you take a Class B building, because that was just a business, a retail business, when you switch it to a residential use, which essentially it's doing now, it's going to a multifamily use. That's when, with the existing building code, typically that's when you get into having to install fire sprinklers and that sort of thing, so if a building already has that's operational, that's one thing, but if not, so that's what gets tricky if you're using, it's kind of like a apartment or something. If you buy an apartment complex, it's been an apartment complex since 1980 and it met the requirements then, you're not required to install everything that's required now. However, if you buy Kmart and you decide to put apartments in there, you have a whole different list of things because you got a change of occupancy. When that change of occupancy kicks in, especially if it's more restrictive, like when you have sleeping quarters and that sort of thing's more restrictive than a business or mercantile, then that's when a lot of things start kicking in existing buildings that wouldn't normally be required if you were just going from one use to the same type of use. Like if a liquor store buys a liquor store and they go in there, unless there's some immediate safety issues, typically the use stays the same, so most of that stuff's grandfathered in. But when you change the occupancy, that's when it gets harder. So
It came up last night, the question of notification of adjacent property owners. What's the city's responsibility?
So if it's not a conditional use, or it's not a new site plan, or it's not a home-based business, typically there isn't a notification if it meets the zoning requirements and all of that by our land use code. But if it's a conditional use or something that you guys have to approve, or a variance or something like that, then everybody else is notified if there's a variance or, like, say, conditional use, anything that could negatively affect surrounding people. However, if it's zoned accordingly and the site's going to work, then typically just when you buy it and put a business in or anything else, then typically surrounding businesses and landowners aren't notified at that time. So, but if they're asking for anything out of the ordinary, or even just a site plan, if you're submitting a new site plan for a new building, but if it's
That
a different.
involves if they would expand that building by 20%, that would invoke the site plan too.
Right.
Which they're not.
Right.
Okay.
So, and there's some high hazard uses and stuff that everybody's notified on if there's certain things, but just limited things, so.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Anything else? Anybody have any questions for Peter? No? All right, move on to council reports. Councilman Nichols.
Well, let me start out with, attended the Yampa 100-year Diamond Jubilee celebration. It was a decent crowd, wasn't as big as you thought for a 100-year celebration, but they still have the commemorative coins, silver coins, for sale. Yampa building on one side, Chamber logo on the other, so turned out to be a good event. The artists and the people were pretty happy with the kind of traffic flow they had. The Colorado Cruisers Car Show, which will be at the Balloon Festival on Saturday, by the way. We went to Hayden, who participated in the Hayden Days Parade. Car show cars were the biggest float or organization in the parade. Parade was pretty short, but good community turnout. Afterwards, since they're here in the audience tonight, the Car Club went to the Sizzling Pickle to meet with Cruising for a Cause. It's a car club out of Denver with high-end sports cars. We're talking Porsches and Maseratis and some other nicer vehicles. they toured the state, but they donate money for different charities on the rides they do. They wrote a outstanding review on their website for the service and the friendliness they received from the Sizzling Pickle. So just, more notoriety for our Craig businesses. Attended the LMD strategy session yesterday for the 2022 budget priorities for the LMD. Made a few changes. They're going to come back. And remember, council remembers we have to approve their budget and their operating plan before, October? Something like that? When's the date?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so, but they're making some, basically the same. They're going to start funding more money for potentially startup new events, and our signature, events that we have every year. So that'll be there. Attended the homeless roundtable last night, homeless shelter roundtable. Very interesting discussion. Brought up a lot of points on both sides of the issue. So I think the community, and I'm sure Steve wants to talk about this too, he was there, and Andrea, that people need to be involved. They need to listen to what's happening in their community. You're not going to get blindsided if you're involved. And a lot of people thought they were blindsided. And I don't know how many meetings I've attended on this and councils attended, but, they need to watch, council meetings. They need to pay attention. And I don't know how you get the word out to everybody. There isn't a way that I know of. So that's about it.
Could I ask one question? Chris, you brought up the Balloon Fest. Did you get an email from Melanie about,
Tickets for the balloon ride? Yes.
About riding?
did we have any takers?
I would have, but I'm tied up in a car show that morning.
What day is it?
Next.
Saturday?
What's that?
Yeah,
Is it next Saturday?
Saturday, two riders, two council.
Yep, and you gotta be there early.
Yeah,
Like sunup.
I'll be playing the fair the night before. So.
Okay. I might,
Looks like you, Peter, and.
Yeah, I gotta close the store, and then I gotta be there on Saturday anyway. So, otherwise, I was actually on lunch, so I could have been the first response.
well, it's a chance to get high.
Yeah.
I don't even have anything to say to that.
I wish I had my drum set.
Right. That's one Peter, zero Paul.
Touche. Normally doesn't happen.
That's rare, right there.
All right.
Yeah, I know. I'm waiting. Let's roll on with this.
Councilwoman Camp.
So we had an EDC meeting. We got an update on the housing assessment study. Peter did go to the LMD board and ask for some help with that funding, but we were denied that help. So EDC will fund that study, which I think is going to benefit our community and the city, especially in a number of different ways. So still money well spent, but Randy Looper with the LMD kind of indicated he thought that maybe that would be a project they would be interested in funding, but they were not. So, let's see, what else did we talk about? We talked a little bit about our EDC budget and marketing. We've got some money set aside for that and kind of what we want to do with that for the rest of the year. Melanie had some thoughts and ideas on that. And then we are going to look at our grant application for the small business grant and we're kind of revising that process as well, making some changes to that. So, but that funding has pretty much been expended for this year. So if people are looking to apply for that, it will be next year, and it sounds like it will most likely be a revised application process. We will, along the lines of the LMD budget meeting, I attended briefly after I left work yesterday, but we will be having an ex officio meeting coming up. We're well past due for that, and so I've reached out to Melody with the county commissioners, and she was going to reach out to Aaron. And between she and Melanie, we're hoping we can get that, like a doodle poll out, and then we've got to get a meeting scheduled sooner rather than later. I think the LMD is really looking for some guidance from our groups, like what do you want us to fund? Where would you like to see these dollars go? So they're just really looking for us to kind of give them some guidance. So we should have that coming up, and then I also attended the chamber anniversary. Of course, we do have our URA meeting for the town hall meeting for the Plan Area 2 tomorrow evening. Although, Peter, I thought that was at 5:30. Based on the email, does anyone else know?
5:30, I thought it was
I thought you
Six?
said 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
5:30,
What time is it?
I thought it started at 5:30. It's at 6.
I thought it was 5:30 too.
I thought it was 6.
We better get some clarification.
Do I hear a 7?
You just tell us when we're supposed to be here tomorrow, but anyway, that is tomorrow evening, and then, and then I also attended the Housing Alliance meeting, which I thought was good. I mean, there was a good turnout, there was some good conversation, and I think it's kind of making them stop and take a look at things. And for those of you in the audience, we appreciate you being there. We appreciate your comments. We certainly listened, and I hope that they listened as well. So we'll kind of keep moving forward with that and see where that goes.
And you are correct. It's
Oh, good.
5:30.
Once in a while, I get it
Cool.
right, and sometimes I don't. So 5:30 here tomorrow for that open house. Okay. Just again, kudos to the Sidewalk project. I was in a downtown business, and I think they feel like it's going pretty well, all things considered. So great job there. Our contractor, of course, is doing a great job, I think. And then I was so excited to see that the trail had been finished. I haven't been on that in a little while. It's been a busy summer and it's been too dang hot. So I was like, hey, they paved that. So I'll be excited when it cools off a little bit to get out there and check it out. So thank you guys for all your hard work. And I'm finished.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Councilman Hess.
Not too much. This morning we had the Northwest Development Council meeting. I think there's going to be an agenda item next time we meet, talking about potential grant match to fund a project manager. So the next meeting we'll have some discussion about that. Outside of that, I was on a podcast with Moff County Proud, the Northwest, the NW.
Nice.
It was kind of fun. So that's about it. I work a lot right now.
Right.
Because we don't have any cops. So
Right. Issue.
people get stabbed and that's but
Thank you.
Again?
Councilman Cummings.
I don't have a lot tonight either. We've had several county commission meetings and they've called special meetings. I've been to 3 different ones that they've called just for different things that they needed to get done in business for the county. I've got HRC coming up on Thursday, and I think that's about it. I'll have a little more next time.
All right. Thank you. Councilman James.
Let's see. I've just been going to the DBA meetings, so those are going to be. They're planning, homegrown, homebrewed. That's coming up pretty soon. They've got a couple other events coming up. They're always pretty cool. Let's see. I went to the Chamber Mixer last week and had a lot of interesting conversations, and I got interviewed by the Denver Museum. It's something different now, but it was the Denver Museum of National History, and it's something else. I don't remember what, but they picked me out of a crowd and asked me to talk about Craig, and I was like, I think you guys are biting off a little more than you chew. You can chew, but okay, let's do this. But I think that one went pretty well. I actually went and met up with them the next night, and got a DBA meeting in the morning, and other than that, I'm pretty much in the same boat as Ryan.
All right. Thank you. So I attended EDC, and then I did attend the roundtable last night. I, believe it or not, meant to just go there and not get involved or speak. But then I did. And I thought there was a lot of valid arguments on both sides. The biggest issue I think I see on both sides of that is facts, right? There were a lot of good questions towards the homeless shelter and not a lot of concrete answers. And then on the other side of it, a lot of emotions and I feel like a lack of facts on both sides. And it's a very passionate argument on both sides. I do want to take this moment to apologize for, I'd gotten a very heated debate outside of that in the parking lot with a former member of council here and a citizen. I don't apologize for defending myself, but I do apologize for the way I acted and how heated that argument got. So I expect better of myself, so I do apologize for that. Taking a moment to apologize for the for the county commissioners. I was the one that made that statement. I didn't mean. No, but I did start that, and I didn't mean to. My intention wasn't to say that they are untrustworthy. It was more about a budgeting stance, and if we give this money, what's to stop somebody from pulling it from it, and it's staying at 20 hours was my having no control of that, and raising taxes for another taxing body is another concern that I do apologize if it came across that way. It was not my intention. But, yeah.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes.
Completely looked over this in my report, but attended the AGNC meeting that was held in Hayden last week. But the state treasurer, Dave Young, came and spoke to the group, and you know, as treasurer, sorry, Katie, you know, they're kind of boring, you know, but one thing. Sorry, I apologized before I said it.
Actual to actual?
But, yeah, but.
Don't punish us all for him.
But anyway, he did speak of a new loan fund that's put in by the state of Colorado. It's called the Climber Loan Fund. And of course, they have an acronym, so it's called the Colorado Loans for Increasing Main Street Economic Development. It's a $250 million program. It's meant for small businesses, 5 to 99 employees, 2.45% on the low side to 3.9% interest. So I have a URA or a link that I can provide, but it's just one more program the state is offering to help business recover. So I thought that was important enough to add. So.
Yep. And then, so the only thing I was going to say, last thing I was going to say about that roundtable last night is just the reason I did speak up was because all the misinformation I hear from people, and even today I see on the comments from the newspaper article, is that people really still don't know that we're in a housing crisis. And if you own your own home and you're not in that situation, you probably don't know that Craig is in a housing crisis, but we are. And so the level of miscommunication there and presentation of facts on both sides is what the biggest issue I see, personally, in my own opinion. But yeah, I don't know how to get all that information out. My frustration was quoted in the newspaper correctly after 2 workshops and several council meetings and 2 town halls. I am shocked at the number of people that don't. Like I said, in this time where
Everything's recorded.
Everything's recorded, and information is so readily available to everybody. I feel like everybody's level of engagement is self-determined. And I would really like to see the public get more engaged in what happens here and in the city and in the county commissioners meeting. Because I feel like decisions are made here, and then people don't know about it, and then people are upset when they could have had a conversation, right? We have listened to the public several times, and we've changed our direction on stuff. The painting of Highway 40 is a good example of that. We listened to the concerns of people, and we didn't approve
For
it.
so long.
Yeah. So that's just my wish, is that the community gets more involved in what happens with the direction of Craig. So that's all I got.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you didn't. No, you're fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So with that.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Check.
Aye.